Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good day. Welcome. This is Parenting Today. I'm Gouwah Soloman, and as I welcome you, sit back, relax, get a cup of tea or play it at the background wherever you are. Hope you are well. But do tell your friends, family, and even colleagues that they can also view us right now, live stream, via our website on www.hilaal.tv. And if they've missed any of the shows, you can catch our uploads on our YouTube channel, Hilaal TV. I'm Gouwah Soloman. Stay with me as we help you and your family or someone that you know find a tutor. I have in studio Shahida Suleiman from Super Tutors, who's been running and doing tutoring for the past 4 years now, but also comes on board as a law student. And we'll find that many students actually opt to tutor. So this is one thing that she's taken beyond as a business and has been quite successful, but also here to help us find a tutor for your family. Assalamu alaikum, Shahida, and thank you so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum salam. It is my absolute pleasure to do so today.
I'm so happy we finally got to get you in studio.
Yes.
It's been a long year. And it's a new year with new year resolutions everybody has, and one of it is to find a tutor for the right family, and we're going to discuss that today. But just tell us a little bit about yourself. You're still a law student yourself, but a busy person.
Yes, I feel like you said, it's a new year and time has already been escaping me. But yeah, so I started the business in 2020 as a second-year student, and it was combining my passion for teaching with the need to help others. I mean, we just entered COVID, parents were losing their minds, children were confused, and so I saw a need and sort of created that solution as well through online tutoring in maths, English, and Afrikaans.
But your background? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a law student, still a law student. It's been a long road. But alhamdulillah, I've graduated with my BCom law degree and I'm continuing my studies in my LLB, which will be completed next year, hopefully.
And I hope that you don't give up this passion for tutoring.
I hope so too.
Because once you're working and not studying full time, work does take over your time and life. But this is something not just for any and everybody. Tutoring is almost like a calling, same like teaching, nursing. It's a calling and it's not just for everybody. So how do you find it?
Like I said, it's always been a passion for me and probably started off when I was very young. It was just the obsession of marking and, having a class to teach and something fun. And then obviously as I got older and, I followed my passions through public speaking and engaging with a whole lot of different people and different backgrounds. And that was one of the things definitely that inspired me to take it further. And I must say I've met so many, children from different cultures, their families, and it's been a wonderful social experience as much as it has been like an educational one for me especially.
So in the world of tutoring, where do you find the space now with regards to online, face-to-face? What are people preferring?
So when I started rather, we had just entered COVID and, hard lockdown. Everybody, like I said, was in a frenzy. And so online tutoring was the best solution that we had at the time. Everybody was obviously very keen. We wanted to stay protected and, keep ourselves safe. And that really grew the business, I guess, for me as well. And so at that time, I'd say right up until last year or so, people were more accepting and more excited to do the online thing. But I feel as we've moved back into what I would say normalcy right now, more and more requests coming through for face-to-face. And I actually have started with the in-person tutoring as well.
Okay. And just coping with the online, was it because you've already originally started with face-to-face, moving on to online, and we need to know firstly from an individual family or as per child why they would need a tutor. So looking at how it started out face-to-face, was it something that people adapted to quite quickly going online? Because now you have to adapt to going face-to-face. All that changes within the space of only 4 years that you have been running it. I mean, it surely hasn't happened before. So how's your business adapted to that as well?
So like I said, we started off at the beginning of 2020. So the transition wasn't too dramatic. I had only a few students and it was pretty seamless, I would say, from in-person to online. More so because we didn't have a choice. I think the only choice was either to
Yeah.
continue online or to stop. And everything kept on moving as well. So I guess we kept on moving and we just adapted. But yeah, there's different techniques. Like I said, like online gives you the chance to sort of open the classroom to the internet because it's more accessible.
Okay.
You can show images, you can show videos more easily, and it's just another avenue to get a little bit more creative, make the lessons a little bit more interactive as well. So I feel like now, having done that for the last 2 years or so, it's been pretty successful for both me as a tutor and the children as well. And now that we're slowly transitioning, I mean, other than the time factor, it's still pretty much the same because you've now got the chance to see these faces that you've been seeing for the years behind the
Online,
screen
yeah.
live as well. So I would say it's going pretty well for now, alhamdulillah.
Transition is good. Okay.
Thank
So let's start off with why one would need a tutor. What are the pressing requirements for a parent, for a child to say, or a family to decide on, listen, we need a tutor in our home now?
Yeah. So I would say that it's very unique in every circumstance, but one of the big things that I have been mentioning a lot is time and time management. And because it's been a transition for us, like you said, from online to in person, and we've never dealt with a situation like that before, I think parents as well become so overwhelmed with the amount of work that their children have, and so do the children as well. So as a tutor, or as a child rather, you would see that, you know, you need constant revision and constant sort of working at a specific subject or at a specific aspect that you're not that well knowledgeable about or that you're not well versed in. So that's where the need for the tutor comes in, especially when your parents are working full time or there are multiple children in a family. It's very difficult to deal with each child's needs specifically and, you know, really help them fully understand what they're lacking in. And that's when the need for a tutor such as myself would then come.
Okay. So if it is that something does arise in a struggle for a child, and the parent picks it up, or the teacher, in fact, is usually the first one to pick it up, would it be best for the parent to say, listen, okay, I'm going to handle this hands-on, but I really actually feel I want to do it, but I don't have the capacity or the time, and their heart is really in it. How can parents still be involved and, you know, have a tutor in as well?
Sure. So one of the approaches that I follow is the triangle approach.
Okay.
So that means that there are 3 aspects or 3 pieces to this puzzle as a tutor or in tutoring, and that is the child, the parent, and the tutor. So basically, none of those parties are left out or left behind. Everybody stays informed. And so if I have to give or I have to work on a specific aspect, obviously, during class time, your child will be going through that. We'll be addressing issues. And then I would revert to you after the session to say, look, this is the progress we have made. What do you feel we should focus more on? Or do you feel enough has been done? Is there anything more that you would like me to do? Or are you satisfied? And is there any technique or is there anything that you've noticed in your child that, you know, you want me to sort of work on and use to help them learn, or for me to teach better, etc. So I think that communication line has to always be flowing and, you know, be open between the parents and the tutor.
Often I hear the triangle is about the educator and the parent and the child.
Yes.
But now within that triangle is the tutor. Let's see how we can work together if there is, because I heard back in the day that teachers don't necessarily get along with tutors. So let's quickly understand that concept. Why is that the case, and how can that problem be eliminated?
So I do believe I have definitely had that situation.
Okay.
But it's not uncommon, but we need to understand that we are not there to replace each other. A tutor being there does not mean that the teacher's job is redundant, rather. It just means that they can work together, because in a school setting, oftentimes you don't get individual attention, or your child doesn't get individual attention because of the size of the classes and the pace. You know, you have to move from one lesson to the next. But in a tutoring setting, you have individual, personalized attention from the tutor. And I think that it would help, actually, the better the relationship. So if the teacher's picking up something wrong or a serious problem area with regards to a subject or a particular aspect, and that is communicated to the parents, which is then communicated to us. That just really helps me to help the child. It's the channel of communication. It's not supposed to be a rivalry in the sense, but it's more, sort of a crutch. So I work off what the teacher does and their methods and their styles to help the child better understand how to approach a particular problem, if it's math, or a particular aspect, if it's a language, etc., when they're actually in school as well.
Okay. All right, great stuff. How to find a tutor with Gouwah Soloman, and we talk more with the super tutors just after this. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. A very good day to you. Assalamu alaikum. This is Parenting Today. Please join us on our YouTube channel, Hilaal.tv, and you can download all the episodes of Parenting Today. We're probably reaching the end of our first season, but please take note, there's various topics that we dealt with today. We're going to be dealing with, or we are dealing with, how to find a tutor, and some wonderful series we did with Dr. Zudaida, adolescent psychiatrist who's based out in Auckland, chatted to us about the human development of a child, and we're still going to continue the series with her. We must still get into parenting. And then next week we wanted to chat to Dr. Shabnam, who'll give us some hands-on aspects of how we can make our children toys and tools to make them learn at home, and still make it at the same time by learning to make it. So a very hands-on show with Dr. Shabnam we're looking forward to as well. Please join us with a series of shows on the development of a child. But today we chat to Gouwah Soloman from Super Tutors, been doing tutoring for the past 4 years now, as well as still currently being a law student, and hopefully takes much further. But Gouwah, we understood sort of the concept last segment with regards to why do you need to find a tutor, what are the needs of the family, of the child, the personalized individual attention, if there are some problem areas, and how quickly parents can deal with it. First off, it's the beginning of the year, so let's talk about it now. With regards to the online and the different types of tutoring, what would you say are the appropriate means to go to when wanting to find a tutor, online or face-to-face? What should be the requirements when deciding online or face-to-face?
Face-to-face. So I feel like regardless of whichever method you choose, obviously it must suit your sort of time schedule, your family life, etc. So if online is more convenient for you, because obviously you are saving on traveling time, and obviously the costs to get there as well. So for me personally, I would say online is most efficient. However, some people are still very skeptical about it. I get a lot of, my child is not comfortable or they don't really learn. But again, I think the reason it's different from schooling online is because of the individualized attention. Like the classes are never too big. I would say 95% of my classes are one-on-one. So you're never going to get a child lagging or not, getting the attention or not having the work or not being able to see the work, etc. So those problems that you have when working in a mass or with masses are eliminated more so when we work together and individually. So that's not a problem. I think one of the ways that I combat that is I just have a free introduction session. So you just speak to me, you see me, you see how it's going to work, how do you get onto the class, how do you, when we need to take a break, how do you raise your hand if you need to use the features or the chat box, or just to familiarize the kids and the parents, more importantly, with the entire procedure and see, do they still have those apprehensions, or are they much calmer and, happier to work online. And I must say it has helped, because usually after that first session, we've become a little bit more familiar with each other. The kids are a bit more enthusiastic and, they feel a little grown up as well now that they in this like personalized session. But with that being said, there are still very many parents that, demand almost face-to-face, because they just feel it's more comprehensive and the contact makes it easier for their kids to learn. And like I said, each to their own. I'm happy to work with both. But it honestly just depends on their choices and, like I said, their schedules.
Well, what is your the main age gap that you think a tutor is required, or grades rather?
Main age.
Sorry, the grades of where the child does struggle.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with this, that each child is different.
Yes.
And obviously, I've had kids that were tutored from grade R that I've worked with and are
Okay.
now in grade 3 or grade 2. And then I've had those that I've tutored from grade 6 and that are now in high school. So it all depends on when you see the need, or rather, if they're older, when they identify the need. But at any age, I think a good age would be to start off at about grade 3, because that's when you get introduced to more extensive,
Unless they have
tests.
some other issues before that needs
Of course,
a tutor.
unless there's specific issues that need, that needs help, and that would be eased, by getting a tutor in, then by all means. But appropriate grade, I would say, would be grade 3, because that's when you get introduced to tests, sort of exams, but you have a more structured learning and more structured syllabus in comparison to the younger grades. So from there onwards, I think, to have a proper foundation and to really get off, I would say, academically on the right foot, it's really good to have that extra support of a tutor.
I know I'm throwing a bit in the deep end now, but I just want to find out through your experience, what is the rough amount of age, about the age that children do start reading? And when can parents worry that, listen, my kid actually needs now a tutor and they should be reading already?
Okay. No, so that is definitely a concern. I clearly recall the first time I tutored a grade R student. It was my very first grade R student, and he didn't know the alphabets. So we obviously had to start from ground up. It took me back many years to preschool, where I had to sound out letters and build that. But I think looking at the syllabus and the way the school structures it, I wouldn't be too alarmed if they're not 100% by like sort of grade R, because that's the only time they start introducing phonics and full words or whole words. So it's not a race, I would say, to try and push them to be ready before they get there. Okay. It's just making sure that they can communicate and they have the ability to be able to grasp those concepts. So I would say from grade R, they definitely move towards reading small novels and little posters or just forming sentences. And from there onwards, obviously, once you enter the grade 1, which is, I believe, foundation phase of school, that is when they will obviously have their readers and more fluent reading in their books and novels, etc. From grade 1. Because I think they administer those little books for them to read.
Okay, but just the sounds, or at least the alphabet, should be at least established in grade 1.
Yes, definitely. By grade R, the basic phonics and sounds, etc., those are usually properly developed, and the child understands that before they move on to the next grade.
So when choosing a tutor, what should you, as a family or as a parent, look at? What type of questions should you ask? What must you check out? How many years of experience, or months, or if any, of experience should you, and also the connection of the individual that you want to find with your family, that tutor does have a connection with family. Yeah. So what should you look out for?
So personally, I mean, I can only speak from my experiences. I'm very grateful to the people who first gave me a try all those years ago. Obviously, then I came in with hardly any experience tutoring, first time getting to know a complete stranger that I was going to spend a lot of time with from then onwards. It's very important to have a good working relationship with the child that you are tutoring or working with, because it builds trust and it honestly keeps that, like I said, the communication open, if they're struggling to understand or something like that. So I think it's very important for the families, or the parents rather, to familiarize themselves with the tutor. And like I said, that introductory lesson, that is exactly what it's for. So if you do, like the personality of the tutor, because it makes a difference to be able to interact and engage the kids and make sure that their parents are happy as well. And that entirely depends on the child. I would say their personalities, if they need somebody who's a little bit more extroverted to bring them out of their shell, or if they need somebody who's a more calmer because perhaps they have an extroverted personality or hyper personality. It depends on them. And then personally, I'm more malleable according to them. So that's the way my teaching style goes, depending on their on the child.
Okay. The environment that you should allow your child to be in during the tutor session, and also when choosing the tutor, is there any specific questions to check out, and what do we expect as parents from you? Yeah. What are sort of the questions that you would ask us?
So obviously you wouldn't want an unqualified person tutoring your child. You wouldn't want somebody who cannot manage or is not patient enough to be tutoring your child. I think some of the questions I've been asked is always qualifications. Do you have them? What are you doing? Personally, yes, I have to give a bio data from inception when I started till this point, and I'm happy to do that because, like I said, it's a passion. But for me, I think the environment that you spoke about, it's very important to have a learning friendly environment. So it doesn't have to be complete silence. Okay. Again, I'm somebody who can study in a crowd full of people or in a library full of, that's a contradiction, yes. In a library full of noise, but like in a quiet place or a noisy place, it doesn't really
matter. Somebody could be whispering next to you in the library also and be irritating.
Yes, so I'm going to go with that. But it could be that environment. It depends on the child again, but I would say that it's better in a tutoring setting or in a home setting to have some sort of, at least a desk, if not an office. Okay. Just an area that is sort of designated that the child knows, look, we're going to begin, learning, or this is my space where I can sit down and consolidate my work and I can dedicate that time. Whether it's with the tutor or without me, like after the session, for example, they must have that space that they could really just work in and almost sort of get lost in it to study and really focus. So that's what I think. So
no heavy distractions.
No loud noises, heavy distractions, preferably as far away from the television as possible.
Hopefully that is the case either way when the children are doing their homework or not. We have Shahida in studio, a tutor who's currently running Super Tutors, and she's guiding us on how to find a tutor. Don't go anywhere, we chat more with her just after this short break. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum. A very good day to you. This is Parenting Today. I'm Gouwah Soloman, and as we continue 2 more segments with Shahida from Super Tutors on how to find a tutor. So Shahida, we dealt with why you need a tutor, the sort of environment, your child or the tutor needs to be in, and then the different types of tutoring. I still want to get in touch more on the face-to-face tutoring, and hopefully we can cover that in the what does tutoring entail. When a child does present with certain issues, you know that off the bat already, or is it something that you do find out? And then do you approach a child with different teaching methods or tutoring methods and styles?
Yes, of course. So usually if there is some sort of issue that's definitely pressing, I'm notified by the parents beforehand. Okay. Like, my child is a little anxious around new people, or she's struggling, to open up. And that often leads to difficulties in learning because if the child is constantly stressed, about making friends, about being away from home, or etc. So those little things sometimes trigger learning issues in the classroom. I think I'm usually notified of that first. But also as you go, you get more familiar with the kids. You learn a little bit more about their personal lives, like their schooling lives. And that is definitely where I would then pick up, okay, this might be an issue, or this might be something that they would want to talk about to get it out of the way so that we can really just focus on the work. And I think with the little kids especially, right up until I would say even grade 7s, I think it's very important to form that relationship with them. Obviously not crossing the sort of teacher or tutor and student boundaries. Okay. That's very important to have that trust and to be able to really get them to respect you and, the work that we're doing and open up in no matter what it is, to ask you questions, to be curious about whatever, especially about the work. But sometimes you do come across, just having a general conversation about how their day went at school, or, what is it that they're so excited about or so anxious about? Because I feel like in the world that we live in now, it's so common for people to be suffering, and even children to be suffering from anxiety or, certain fears, etc. So I think that's very important when you're tutoring, which the one-on-one setting does definitely stimulate and definitely helps out with.
What would you encourage though, online or one-on-one?
So personally, I would definitely encourage, from my experience, I would encourage online tutoring.
Okay.
I feel like your child is more comfortable in their own space, as am I. There is no traveling, there is no, rushing. You're not going to be late 9 times out of 10. So you're very much more comfortable.
Added stress, yes.
It's eliminated all that added stress of getting there on time and sort of that 10 minutes that you need to take to collect yourself, etc. So with online, you there 5 minutes earlier, they there 5 minutes earlier. You can have a quick chat about their day and, go straight into work. Everything's on the screen or emailed already. There's no hassle. You've got records. Everything is sorted and it's simple. I think with face-to-face, there's a lot of, I've lost my worksheets and I did not get a chance to do my homework. My book is lost. So I've dealt with that as well. So definitely for me as a tutor online. And I feel like a lot of parents just try it out, should give it an opportunity because you never know, like I said, it's definitely more efficient.
Are there cases where after the fact that you don't necessarily pick up the issue at the beginning, but later on you'll say, oh, your child is really struggling with this phonics, or he's maybe dyslexic, there's something possibly, that I've picked up. How do you approach the parent, and is it something for you to bring up with them? Do you still have connecting with the parents as a feedback session when you are tutoring the kids?
Yes. So I think those sort of problems will obviously show within the first month or so. So it's nothing that's going to take me by surprise or take the parents by surprise a good few months after, because you will pick it up in their spelling or their reading, etc. And I do believe that it is my job as a tutor who's working with a child, if I do feel like they have, certain issues that can be worked on and that can be dealt with and, hopefully eradicated in the future, as a tutor, it is important for me to let their parents know of it. And from the start, those relationships between myself and the parent, it's very important, as important as it is with myself and the child. So those communication channels are always open, and there's always sort of a feedback, every month, or almost, it depends on the parents' communication with me. So if they prefer for me to give them communication after each lesson, then by all means, I will give you an update whenever you want. And usually, though, it's on a monthly basis. So at the end of the month, we would recall or recollect everything that we've done. We've got a paper trail, obviously, of what's going on and what's happening in classes. And I think sometimes it's just automatically the parent will pick it up. There's an increase in marks. There's a better understanding of certain words, certain aspects if we're dealing with the younger ones. There's a excitement, I would say. I find a lot of the times once you've understood something, or once the children have understood it, they're more enthusiastic to share that, with the different family members or to elaborate on those things. So that is almost self-reflective or for the parents as well. But definitely feedback is important, and it works two ways.
So just something that popped in now was the type of tutor that you choose. Could it possibly be a family member when you have chosen someone? Because, a sibling does play a big role in seeing the child every day. But the siblings, can act differently towards the tutor, who's now the older sibling, for instance. So is it a good idea to have a sibling as a tutor? What is your opinion?
I do believe that it is not a good idea.
Okay.
I think personally it is, obviously our older siblings are our role models most of the time, but there is a certain boundary when you have an outside tutor there. There's a certain respect level that I feel when I would use the word employ a family member like an elder sibling to tutor a younger sibling, there's sort of a blurring of the boundaries there, because it leaves the child sort of unsure. So, what am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? And there's that uncertainty, like, are we playing around? Is this for real? Because after the session, you're just going to have family dinner together and you're going to joke around and you're going to chat about your day. But with your tutor, who's from the outside world, I would say, it's more of a formal relationship. It's a formal environment. And I feel like that stimulates, learning a lot better than having just a family member. If it's, be it an older sibling or elder cousin, even if they are experienced and they are qualified, it just creates somewhat of a blur between the roles in the relationship. So I would recommend getting somebody from outside to, tutor. And it's also a breath of fresh air, I would say, because you have new styles, new methods that can be employed as well.
Let's talk about the connection between the tutor and the parent as well as the child. When should you worry about your child with regards to the right match of the tutor? Because there are certain signs that a child could sort of display with the tutor or without the tutor. Can a parent sit down after 1 or 2 sessions, or even the first session, and what should they be asking the child?
So yes, of course, not every child is going to be a perfect match for every tutor. But like I said, so for me personally, we start off with the introductory lesson so that we're not really wasting anyone's time.
Yeah.
And that's where you sort of get a feel like, is the child being responsive to me? Because it might be that I'm not the exact match or to their personality. So from then, I think from the get-go, you'll be able to see whether the child is more enthusiastic, or, they have the same attitude that, no, I don't really need this, or I can't really learn in this environment. So I think that's important. Right off the bat, you're going to know if it's a fit, it's a fit. And if it's not, unfortunately, then you just have to keep on looking and trying to find somebody that does.
So you don't even have to cross-question your child. You'll just know.
You don't have to. I think you'll see the signs in their personality. The more enthusiastic they are about it, because I'm pretty sure most children are apprehensive at the thought of having an extra hour of class or 2 after school. So
talking about that extra hour of class, how do you then make it more exciting for the little ones? And even for the kids, I mean, that has a long day, maybe it's high school, for instance, because you're tutoring from grade R to 9.
Yes.
So you have to jump a bit with your personality, eh?
I would say so. I think I'm going to break the stereotype that most law students and lawyers are boring.
Okay.
Because personally, I feel like I am a very creative individual.
Yeah, you have to come down to a grade R.
And then go back up to grade 9.
Yeah.
So I feel like definitely requires a lot of personality shifting.
But that'll help you in
the long run, I'm hoping. So with the kids, with the little ones, it's a lot of interaction. So there's a lot more creativity, like whether it's dressing up as your favorite character one day a week, or watching a fun video 5 minutes towards the end of the class. It definitely requires a lot more interaction, a lot more playfulness, whilst definitely getting the work done. And as we move up to the older kids, it is more formal, but I mean, there's nothing a few dad jokes can't solve, and just a few laughs here and there. And yeah, that's how we go.
Okay. And the kids take on to that?
Pretty well. So far, so good.
So what happens in the case where the parents are saying, listen, you're just not in my budget? I know this might not be a quick answer, but you're just not in my budget. How can we work together and still afford you? Does that happen?
That has happened, and that definitely does happen. I try to keep my rates as reasonable as possible in comparison to everybody around me, for the quality of education that I know I'm going to be delivering. I feel like the prices that I'm charging are pretty fair, but usually what I do is, if there is a parent with that concern, we sort of tailor make something that's affordable for them and still reasonable for myself. Because at the end of the day, it's just important that, the child really gets that help that they need, and, that is going to help them in their schooling career as well.
I've heard parents come on board and say, listen, I'll cook you a meal, please just help my child. And sometimes that's all that the tutor also just needs. So who knows what will work. Negotiate as much as you can.
True.
We have Shahida in studio with us, who is running Super Tutors, and she's guiding us on how to find a tutor. But more on this conversation and a parenting tip at the end of our show as well. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us and joining us here on Parenting Today. We're chatting to Super Tutors, Gouwah Soloman in studio with us, and guiding us exactly how to find a tutor, which one is right for your family, and how do you know and what to ask her, how they're gelling with your family. So welcome back, Shahida. Been doing this for the past 4 years, and still as a student you want to keep busy your mind, your body and soul and everything, and I'm sure tutoring from grades R to 9 does keep that mind busy. But we want to look at the benefits of tutoring and the different tutoring styles. And if you as a parent walk in and you're not happy with what the tutor is doing at that very moment, how do you approach that tutor, and should you be around when the tutor is busy teaching your child?
So I'm going to start with the second half of that question. And if you do find some form of disjoint between the tutor and your child, I would advise you to perhaps sit in on the first or second lesson, so that you just know, it's going according to plan, or you feel like sufficient content has been covered, everything's okay, and your child is comfortable. But I think from thereafter, if you are comfortable with the tutor and you feel, your child is safe and is in a good learning environment, then it's better to then take a step back. Because in certain instances, some children don't feel too comfortable, asking the questions that they don't know, or asking for help to go over a concept again if their parent is in the room, because there are some expectations. Sometimes parents feel that their children, should just understand this because it's such a simple concept. And that's not the case more times than not. And you have to go over the same thing a few times. And there's some form of, I would say, like, embarrassment sometimes that the children feel if the other family members are in the room, or if their parents are consistently watching over them. So once you've established, you're comfortable, your child is comfortable, and you're happy, I think from there onwards, take a step back, leave it up to the tutor. And obviously there'll be feedback sessions, and you can always have that line of communication open. And I always say to my oldest students and their parents, for all the kids, is no matter what time of the night or day it is, if you're doing an assignment, if you've got a question and it's bugging you, message me, email me, phone me if you need to. And it has happened once or twice. Some late night Afrikaans, some late night Afrikaans essays and speeches, etc. But I think that comes in because it's a passion of mine, and I really don't mind. But yeah, so I think, like you said, once you've established that relationship and you're comfortable, take a step back and let us handle it from there. And then the benefits of tutoring, which is where you touched on first, I think we've spoken a lot about, how you can find a tutor and what can the tutor do. I think it's very important that you consider that in the bigger picture of your everyday life. So time management for you as a parent, you are definitely going to be saving a lot of time, and you getting frustration for sure. So you getting the help that you need directly to your child. And sometimes, even though you want to help, like you mentioned earlier, you cannot, or you don't have the skills to necessarily do so, because maybe it's a different method that you've learned many years ago, or it's just a completely new concept that you yourself might not be aware of. So by getting a tutor in, you're getting a fresh perspective, you have better time management for you and your child, because you have a scheduled session. It's not random or just at any point. It's structured, it's scheduled, there's a better fit for your day and for your schedule as a whole. I think your child becomes a lot more confident in the work that they are doing. Often we usually go a little bit ahead of the syllabus. So from what they're learning in class, we're a few, not too much, but a few pages, I would say, if we had to speak in the textbook, in terms of the textbook, we're a few pages ahead. So when they're reaching that sort of aspect in class, they've already got a base knowledge. It's not overwhelming for them, so I'm not going to push the work, just to get it done. They are going at a good pace. They've got a baseline knowledge of what the next chapter or the next aspect is going to be of. And I think that also eliminates the anxiety of not knowing, what's going on in a classroom setting. So that is definitely a benefit. And so that's academically. But overall, I feel from my experience, I've worked with a lot of kids that are very shy, very quiet, very anxious, a lot of the times, because they don't know exactly, whether they're going to be doing something right, or, they don't know what they're learning properly. So you have a growth in self-confidence, and I would say it's a form of self-development as well, because then they're able to break out of that shell and feel a lot more happy and confident in how they carry themselves, solely because they understand and they feel like they have a lot more control of what they're learning and, school life and their academics as well.
What would you say is a good time to sit with your child and the tutor? Because of course you do it after school hours, over the weekends, and sometimes the kids had a long day at school. So let's talk about timing and what would be a good fit to have your tutor come in.
So for me, we start classes from 2:30, and I think the last one runs until 6:30. So it's not too long. Like I said, these are individualized 1-hour sessions. So the optimum time a child can focus for is between 45 minutes to an hour. And then from that time, they would need a break and then to rejuvenate their mind and then carry on. So for me, I think an hour is prime because out of that hour, like I said, you have a few minutes to chat about their day. You have a few minutes of, like a break where they would then complete a task or a homework or just have a question and we would then be talking. So it's that part would be dedicated to interacting to each other and not just pushing down the content. So I would say optimally for the younger kids, because they have shorter days and more easier days, usually about when they get back from school, as long as they've had a rest period of at least like an hour or two, we usually start from about 2:30. And then for the older kids, I find a lot of kids doing a lot of extramurals. So they have karate, they have cricket, swimming, etc., madrasa after school. So there's a lot going on. But I still recommend at least an hour or maybe 2 for the older kids because they've had a longer day. The later you leave it, the lazier their brain gets. So by the time we reach 5:30, they've switched off, they're tired and not really interested in what you have to say. For the little ones, I get them to jump around and get the energy and oxygen flowing
you can't
back.
do that with the older ones.
But the older kids, I'm pretty sure they're not going to come back if I make them jump around and touch their toes, etc. But so I think that's about 2 hours after school. So you've got enough time to maybe cover your homework, start an assignment, have something to eat, watch some television and just chill before we get into it again.
Okay, so this is something that we have spoken about early on, and it's a teacher relationship with the child and yourself and the parent, the triangle. And the benefit of the child having a tutor at, benefiting at school rather, having a tutor at home. What are those and how can it show, of course, something that you've mentioned earlier, not conflicting with what the teacher or the teaching methods. But if it's something that does come out, and I know that you said you've had those instances, how can you keep that relationship good and work together? And it really shows that the child's benefiting at school through tutoring.
I believe as a tutor, we have more of a secondary role. So you're not the primary educator of the child. And in that role, I think it's better and for the child and for yourself to cooperate with the teachers rather than trying to take over and completely change the learning styles and methods. Personally, I would align myself with what they have been taught in school. So for perhaps, for example, if the teacher has taught a certain method that's probably different to mine and I am familiar with this method, I would rather go along with her method or his method and help the child really understand, step 1, this is what we do. Step 2, this is what you do, in alignment with their teacher's methods and, their sort of trend of thought, instead of confusing them with 2 or 3 conflicting methods. Obviously, there are a few tips and tricks that I know that will help them as well. Okay. So I throw that in there as well, but more or less sticking to what they're doing in schools, just so that they're not confused or, left even more distraught about the subject and feel like they confused completely.
There isn't any help. We have to end. Unfortunately, our time has run up. Like they say, when you're having fun, it literally flies. Definitely. So shukran so much, Jazakallah, for your time. Shaira, any last words for parents and the advice on finding a tutor?
I would definitely say keep looking if you need one because the right fit is out there. But really, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm so glad that I got to share, what I've learned and my experiences with the parents out there. And hopefully it helps them and their children.
Definitely. It was a pleasure having you, sharing your knowledge and imparting some information to our parents. All the best for your future endeavors. You're studying till we see you. Maybe you a lawyer or grown really super tutors to a bigger way than we see just here in Joburg, but more in other provinces, inshallah. So all the best and strength to you, inshallah.
Jazakallah so much. Thank you.
There we have it, Gouwah Soloman. And we were chatting to her, tutoring for the past 3 to 4 years from grade R to 9, also a law student. So a busy student, still taking on some more task work. But we will leave her details on our social pages as well. And thank you so much for joining us for this edition. But before we go anywhere, here's this week's parenting tip.
Meet Tim and Sarah. Now, as a parent, Tim knows completing homework is important. But he's noticed Sarah's having trouble staying focused, and sometimes she's unable to finish it on time. Well, here are a few tips which can help Sarah and your child complete their homework successfully. Number 1, have your child start their homework within 30 minutes of arriving home from school. Number 2, give your child a healthy snack before getting started, or something they can nibble on while they complete their homework. Number 3, set a timer for 45 minutes and have your child work on the toughest subject first. Number 4, make sure all the supplies your child needs are within arm's reach of their study space. And number 5, limit the distractions. Keep the TV off and the noise level low so your child won't get distracted. Just applying a few of these tips can create the right environment for your child to complete their homework on time.
And that's a wrap for Parenting Today. On Parenting Today from myself, Gouwah Soloman, wassalamu alaikum and goodbye for now.